It's late again. I'm sitting at my small kitchen table, the flickering light of my laptop the only thing cutting through the dimness of my apartment. Outside, the city hums, oblivious to the quiet battle happening inside this cramped space. I'm tired, bone-deep tired, but there's still a knot of anxiety twisting in my chest, the kind that never quite goes away. It's the pressure, the relentless financial pressure that colors every choice I make, every breath I take. I'm 27, but sometimes I feel much older, like I've been worn down by the weight of bills and expectations that seem designed to crush rather than support. The last few years have been a blur of juggling paychecks, rent, groceries, and the small, fleeting joys that keep me going. I work a job that pays just enough, and yet, somehow, not enough at all. Every month, I stretch what little I have thinner and thinner. The rent keeps rising, groceries get more expensive, and bills pile up like a mountain I'm climbing without a rope or safety net. It feels like I'm trapped in a system that's rigged against me. Expenses keep growing faster than my income, and every time I think I'm catching up, something else sneaks in to pull me down again: car repairs, an unexpected medical bill, or just the creeping cost of living that no one talks about because it's normal. But it's not normal for me. It's terrifying. I keep thinking about the future, but it feels like a mirage, always out of reach. There are days I feel so overwhelmed, I can hardly breathe. Like last week, when I had to decide whether to buy groceries or pay a utility bill. Choosing felt like picking which basic necessity I'd let slip away. I chose groceries because I couldn't face going hungry, but the guilt gnawed at me because I knew the lights might be shut off soon. That's the reality I live in, the impossible trade-offs, the constant balancing act. I've had to put so many dreams on hold. I used to imagine traveling, seeing new places, or even just having a weekend getaway. Now, even a small trip feels like a luxury I can't afford. I wanted to go back to school, finish a degree, maybe start a career that felt meaningful instead of just pay the bills. But every time I look at tuition costs, the loan applications, and the time commitment, it all feels like a cruel joke. How do you invest in your future when you can barely afford your present? Some nights, I cry quietly in my bed, ashamed that I can't figure this out faster, that I'm not successful by some invisible standard I'm told I should meet by now. It's lonely. There's a shame in admitting how fragile your footing really is, especially when everyone else seems to be moving forward so effortlessly. But I'm learning to be honest with myself, to acknowledge the fear without letting it consume me. I cope the best I can. I track every penny, I cook meals from scratch even when I'm exhausted, I take long walks to clear my head instead of going out with friends because going out costs money I don't have. I remind myself that I'm not alone, even though it feels like it sometimes. Online communities, a few close friends, and small moments of kindness help me keep going. And still, beneath the exhaustion, there's a stubborn flicker of hope. I hope that one day the system will change, or that I'll find a way to change my place in it. I hope to break free from this cycle, to live without constant anxiety about money. To wake up and not have my first thought be, how am I going to pay for this month? Maybe one day I'll look back on this time and see it as the crucible that forged me. Maybe I'll find strength in the struggle, and maybe I'll finally be able to chase the dreams I put away for now. For now, I hold on to that hope, fragile as it is, because it's all I have. This is my truth, a story of ongoing financial pressure, of feeling trapped yet still trying to breathe. It's messy, hard, and sometimes heartbreaking, but it's mine. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. It's hard to explain what it feels like to be caught in a constant tug-of-war between what you earn and what you owe, especially when the gap between the two just keeps growing wider every month. I'm 26 now, living in a city where everything seems to get more expensive overnight: rent, groceries, utilities, even a cup of coffee. Yet my paycheck? It's the same as last year, and the year before. Sometimes I think I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up, but I'm stuck standing still. I remember when I first moved out on my own after college. I had a decent job in marketing, and while it wasn't a fortune, I thought it was enough. I had this idealistic vision that if I just budgeted carefully, lived modestly, and kept my head down, I'd be okay. Maybe I'd even start saving for a little apartment, or at least a reliable car. But that was before the rent skyrocketed, before the cost of gas doubled, before groceries became this stressful calculation with every trip to the store. Every month, I open my bank app with this gnawing anxiety. It's a kind of dread I never thought I'd get used to, but here I am, acclimated to the feeling of watching my account balance shrink almost as soon as my paycheck lands. Bills come first, always. Rent, utilities, phone, insurance. Then there's food, not the fancy stuff, just basics, but still it adds up more than I expect. And then my student loans, which seem like this giant weight I can't put down. After all that, there's barely anything left for anything else. And even when there is, it doesn't feel safe to spend it. I'm scared of emergencies. Scared of the unexpected. Sometimes I catch myself counting the days until my next payday like it's a lifeline. But by the time the money arrives, it's almost like I never had it. I keep track of every dollar, juggling and rearranging in my head. Do I skip the gym membership this month? Can I afford to replace those shoes that are falling apart? What if the car breaks down? Every choice feels like a compromise, a small sacrifice chipped off from a life I hoped would be fuller. The emotional toll isn't something I talk about often. I try to stay upbeat, keep a positive front for friends and family, but alone, it hits hard. There are nights when I lie awake and just feel overwhelmed, like no matter what I do, I'll never get ahead. That pressure bubbles up into this tight, gnawing anxiety. It's exhausting. I've learned to hide it well, but it's always there, lurking beneath the surface. What's hardest is the feeling of being trapped. I know people say, just work harder, save more, budget better. But when your income is static and prices rise like inflation, it's like pushing a boulder uphill that keeps getting heavier. The system feels stacked against me. It's not just about personal choices or discipline. It's about economic forces bigger than me, and I'm caught in the middle. I've had to postpone so many dreams. Buying a home? That feels like a fairy tale. Even the idea of saving for a vacation, or going back to school, seems impossible right now. I think about my future a lot, but it's mostly in terms of survival, how to stay afloat another month, another year. Sometimes I envy people who seem to have the freedom to chase passions or take risks. I wish I could quit this job and try something new without the fear of not being able to pay rent. I wish I could say yes to things without that gnawing, can I really afford this, holding me back. But I'm trying to cope. I've learned to find small moments of joy in cheap or free things, a walk in the park, cooking meals at home, watching a favorite show. I keep reminding myself that this is temporary, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. I'm slowly building skills, trying to be better with money, looking for side gigs, hoping for raises. I talked to a few close friends about the pressure, and it helps not feeling completely alone in this. Despite it all, I still hold on to hope. I believe things can get better, even if it's slow. I imagine a future where I'm not living paycheck to paycheck, where I can breathe easier, where my dreams aren't on hold. It's what keeps me going, that fragile, stubborn hope that someday I'll break free from this cycle. For now, I'll keep pushing through, trying to find balance in the chaos. Because while the system may be bigger than me, I'm not ready to give up on myself. Sometimes I catch myself staring at my bank app like it's a crystal ball, hoping it'll suddenly reveal some hidden treasure, or at least show a number that doesn't make my chest tighten. It never does. It's a daily ritual now, open, sigh, close, repeat. The truth is, I'm stuck in this exhausting loop where my expenses are climbing faster than I can earn, and it feels like the world is spinning ahead without me. I'm 26, living alone in a small apartment that's barely affordable. When I graduated college, I thought I was ready to step into the world with some kind of plan. I had a degree, a decent job lined up, and a vision of moving forward. But the reality hit harder than I expected. Rent prices kept rising, groceries got more expensive, the utility bills ballooned, and my paycheck, well, it stayed stubbornly the same. Every day, I juggle numbers in my head. Should I skip dinner and eat the instant noodles I bought last week? Can I justify the few dollars on a coffee to keep myself awake during my second job shift? These aren't decisions I thought I'd have to make at this stage of life, but here I am. The pressure is relentless, and it seeps into everything I do. Even when I'm with friends, my mind is calculating, strategizing how to make it through the next paycheck. I feel trapped, honestly. It's like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up but not going anywhere. The bills pile up like a mountain I can't climb, and the system feels rigged. I'm not sure if it's bad luck, or just how the economy is designed, but it's crushing to feel that no matter how hard I work, I can't get ahead. The minimum wage jobs that fill the city, the student debt that keeps whispering in the back of my mind, the rising costs of healthcare and everything else, it all adds up to a constant weight on my shoulders. There's this gnawing fear of the future that's always there, just under the surface. I worry about what happens if my job disappears or if some emergency hits. I see headlines about inflation, market crashes, and I wonder if I'll ever be able to save for something meaningful, a home, a trip, or even just a day without stress. Sometimes, I dream about traveling, about changing careers, or even starting a small business. But those dreams feel distant, like stars I can see but never reach. Emotionally, it's draining. I have days where I feel numb, like I'm just pushing through to survive. Other days, the anxiety kicks in full force. It's hard to explain to people who aren't living this way, the constant low-level panic, the guilt when you can't afford to join friends for dinner, the shame in having to borrow money from family even though you hate feeling like a burden. I've learned to hide it pretty well, but some nights, when I'm alone, it all spills out. Tears, frustration, that sense of being utterly stuck. Coping has become a skill I never wanted to master. I've learned to cut back in ways that chip away at my happiness, canceling subscriptions, walking instead of taking the bus, cooking meals from scratch with whatever's cheapest. I meditate sometimes, or try to journal, to keep my mind from spinning out. Social media can be a double-edged sword, seeing others post about trips or new gadgets can sting, but I also follow accounts that focus on budgeting and financial advice, trying to stay informed and hopeful. One thing that keeps me going is the small victories. Like finally paying off a credit card, or getting a little extra from a freelance gig. These moments remind me that progress is possible, even if it's slow. I've started setting aside a tiny emergency fund, no matter how small, because I want to build some kind of safety net. It's a way to say to myself, you're doing okay, even if it doesn't feel like it. The hardest part is reconciling my dreams with my reality. I had this vision of independence and freedom, owning a place, traveling the world, maybe even helping others through my work. Right now, those feel paused, waiting for a time when the math adds up differently. But I try to remind myself that life isn't always a straight line. Maybe these struggles are shaping a resilience I'll need later, even if it's painful now. I'm learning to be kinder to myself, to acknowledge that this isn't a failure but a chapter in a bigger story. Sometimes, I talk to friends about it, and we share the feeling of being caught in this economic squeeze. There's some comfort in knowing I'm not alone, that others are navigating this too. It makes me want to believe that change is possible, even if it feels far away. So for now, I keep moving forward, one day at a time, holding on to hope that someday the treadmill will slow down, the expenses will balance out, and the dreams I've had to put on hold will find their way back into my life. Until then, I'm learning to survive, to cope, and to keep my heart open to the possibility that better days are ahead. I never thought I'd feel this way, like I'm constantly sinking, no matter how hard I paddle. But here I am, 26 years old, stuck in this endless cycle of bills and paycheck-to-paycheck living, feeling like I'm trapped in a system designed to keep me just barely afloat. The economy keeps shifting, prices keep climbing, but my paycheck? It feels like it's standing still or inching forward so slowly it might as well be frozen in time. Some days, I wake up before my alarm just to lie there, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'm going to stretch what little money I have to cover rent, groceries, transportation, and the small bits of life that make it worth living. It's this constant mental math, this silent calculation that never stops. If I skip this meal, I can afford gas for the week. If I don't buy new shoes, I can pay off a little more of my credit card. It's exhausting, and honestly, it's isolating. The job I have pays just enough to keep the lights on and the fridge from being empty, but not enough to save, not enough to plan for the future, not enough to breathe easy. I see my friends posting about trips, new gadgets, or even just dinners out, and I feel this sting, not jealousy, exactly, but a sharp reminder of how out of reach those things are for me right now. It's hard to admit, but I've had to cancel plans more times than I can count because even a small expense feels like too much. The economic news doesn't help. Every month, I read about inflation rates, housing costs climbing, or how wages aren't keeping pace. It's like watching a race where the finish line keeps moving further away, no matter how fast you run. I feel frustrated and, sometimes, defeated. How can I build a life, save for something bigger, or even dream about owning a home, when the basics are a daily struggle? Emotionally, this constant pressure wears on me. There are days when I feel anxious and overwhelmed, and I catch myself snapping over small things, like when the bus is late or when I spill coffee on a shirt I can't afford to replace. I try not to let it show, but the weight of it all is there, like a shadow I carry everywhere. I'm tired, but I can't stop. To cope, I've had to get creative. I cook more at home, even if it means eating the same thing over and over. I've taken on freelance gigs where I can, though the pay is never steady. I limit myself to free entertainment or late-night walks when the air feels calm and empty, almost like a pause button on all the noise in my head. Sometimes, I write down my thoughts. This is one of those times, because it helps me feel less alone, less swallowed up by the pressure. I've had dreams, big ones. When I was younger, I thought I'd travel, maybe live in a different city, or pursue a career that didn't just pay the bills but felt meaningful. I wanted to go back to school, learn new skills, maybe start a small business. But those dreams feel like luxuries now, things I have to put on hold because the present demands all my energy. It's painful to admit that I've had to postpone my own happiness, my own growth, just to survive. Still, there's a small flicker of hope inside me. Maybe it's stubbornness, or maybe it's just the way we're wired to want something better. I keep thinking about ways out, how I might save a little more, learn new things for better jobs, or find a community that understands this struggle. I want to believe that this pressure won't define my whole life, that one day I'll look back and see it as a chapter, not the whole story. For now, I'm just taking it day by day, trying to be kind to myself, even when the system feels so unkind. Maybe that's enough for today. I never thought I'd feel this way in my mid-20s, like I'm running in place, stuck on a treadmill that keeps speeding up while my legs just can't keep pace. Every morning I wake up with this heavy knot in my stomach, an almost physical pressure that comes from knowing no matter how hard I work, the pile of bills waiting at the end of the day never shrinks. It just grows. Faster than my paycheck, faster than any raises I might hope for, faster than my ability to keep breathing easy. Growing up, I had dreams that felt so tangible. I pictured a life where I could move out, decorate my own apartment, maybe get a dog, travel a bit on weekends, and save enough to eventually buy a home. Simple things. I thought hard work meant freedom and security, that if I got a decent job and managed my money right, I'd be fine. But the economy had a different plan. Rent alone feels like an unrelenting beast. I spend nearly half of my income just to keep a roof over my head, and every year it creeps up. Utilities, groceries, transit, all inch upward too. I find myself double-checking every expense, calculating if I really need that coffee, or if I can make it through the day without buying lunch out. It's exhausting, this constant vigilance. Like I'm a tightrope walker over a pit of anxiety, trying to balance every dollar just right, hoping the wind won't catch me off guard. And then there are the unexpected expenses. A broken phone screen, a sudden trip to the doctor, or an emergency car repair. They're like invisible landmines waiting to explode. When these things happen, I feel my chest tighten. I scramble to shuffle money around, cut corners even more, and postpone payments. Sometimes I catch myself lying awake at night, wondering if I should call family for help, pride battling need, shame battling desperation. I hate feeling like a burden, but what choice do I have? My friends talk about new cars, vacations, and weekend brunches, and I smile and nod, but inside, I feel isolated. The gap between their freedom and my restrictions feels like a canyon. I've stopped inviting people over because my apartment is too small and frankly, too bare. I can't afford nice things, and I'm embarrassed by it. It's like the financial pressure isn't just about money, it erodes my confidence and chips away at my sense of belonging. Work itself is another source of stress. I'm stuck in a job that pays the bills but doesn't inspire me. I think about switching careers or going back to school to pursue something I'm passionate about, but the thought of lost income and additional debt terrifies me. It feels like I'm caught in a trap, where any risk could mean disaster. So, I stay, feeling more like a cog in a machine than a person building a future. Sometimes I try to distract myself with small joys, a walk in the park, binge watching a favorite show, cooking a new recipe, but even those moments are tinged with worry. I'm always aware of what I can't afford, what I have to sacrifice tomorrow because of what I choose to enjoy today. It makes happiness feel fragile, like a bubble that could burst at any moment. Despite everything, I still hold on to hope. I imagine a day when I'm free from this relentless financial weight. When I can save for a trip, splurge on a nice meal without guilt, or invest in my own home. I dream of stability so solid that I can finally relax, breathe deeply, and look forward without anxiety. But those dreams have been postponed again and again, shoved further down the line by rent increases, inflation, and the sheer cost of living. I remind myself that this pressure isn't my failure. It's a system that feels rigged, where wages stagnate but expenses climb, where the basic cost of living swallows up every cent, and where hope becomes a quiet rebellion. My resilience isn't just about survival, it's about refusing to give up on a better future. I'm learning to be gentle with myself, to celebrate small victories, and to reach out when I need support. Still, some days the weight is almost too much. I look in the mirror and see someone who's tired, anxious, and scared about what tomorrow will bring. But beneath that, there's also someone who's trying, who's fighting to hold on to dreams even when the world says they're out of reach. This isn't just a story about money, it's about what it means to be human in a time when the economy seems indifferent to the everyday struggles of people like me. And so I keep walking, step by step, hoping that one day the treadmill slows down enough for me to run forward, instead of just trying not to fall behind. I remember when I first started working full-time after college, I felt like I was stepping into the world with open arms. I was eager, hopeful, and, honestly, a little naive. My degree wasn't a golden ticket, but it was something I was proud of. The paycheck was modest, but I believed if I budgeted carefully and kept my expenses in check, I could build a decent life. That was almost 5 years ago. Now, the reality feels different, like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up, and no matter how fast I move, I'm stuck in the same place. The cost of living has climbed higher and higher, faster than my income ever has. Rent increases every year, groceries get more expensive by the month, and things I used to think of as small luxuries, like dining out or even a movie ticket, feel like distant memories. It's like this invisible pressure that keeps squeezing tighter, and the harder I try to breathe, the less air I seem to get. Every day, I have to make decisions that weigh heavily on me. Do I spend a little extra this week on fresh vegetables or buy the cheaper canned ones? Should I refill my phone plan with data so I don't feel completely disconnected, or should I go without and save that $15? Sometimes, I catch myself calculating how many times I can walk instead of taking the bus, even when my legs ache from standing all day at work. These aren't just choices, they're survival tactics in a world that feels stacked against me. Bills arrive like relentless reminders that my paycheck is just a drop in a vast ocean of expenses. Electricity, internet, phone, student loans, the list goes on. I work hard, sometimes overtime, but the extra money often disappears before I even see it. I'm haunted by the feeling that I'm barely keeping my head above water, and every unexpected expense, a medical bill, a car repair, threatens to pull me under. This ongoing financial pressure doesn't just affect my wallet, it gnaws at my sense of self. There's a quiet shame in having to say no to friends who want to go out or in declining invitations because I can't afford the cost. Social life shrinks when money is tight. I catch myself shrinking, too, feeling smaller, less worthy, even though I know logically that money doesn't define my value. Sleep is sometimes elusive, crowded out by anxious thoughts about the next paycheck or how to stretch what I have. I try to remind myself that I'm not alone, lots of people are facing the same struggles, but that doesn't always make the nights easier. There's a loneliness in feeling trapped, like I'm stuck in a loop with no clear way out. I've had to postpone so many dreams. I used to think I'd travel after saving up a bit, see new places, broaden my horizons. But now travel feels like a luxury for someone else. I've shelved plans to go back to school for a higher degree that might open better career doors because even tuition payments seem impossible right now. I've delayed buying a car, starting a family, even moving out of my tiny apartment because each of those steps feels like a mountain I can't climb. Coping is a daily practice of finding small moments of relief and hope. I take solace in simple things, a walk in the park, a good book borrowed from the library, video calls with family. Sometimes, I pour my feelings into writing or journaling, trying to give voice to the frustration and fear that build up inside. I hold tight to the belief that this pressure won't last forever, even if the future feels blurry and uncertain. I wish the system felt less like a cage. Like if wages kept pace with the rising costs. Like if there were real opportunities to break the cycle rather than just survive within it. I wish I could tell my younger self to be prepared for this reality, but I don't want anyone to lose their hope before they've even started. Still, despite the weight of financial stress, I hold on to a stubborn spark inside me, a hope that someday, somehow, I'll find a way out. That I'll reclaim the dreams I put on hold. That I'll be able to live without the constant anxiety of money slipping through my fingers. For now, I'm here, doing my best, navigating the pressure with whatever strength I can muster. And I'm trying to remind myself, this struggle is part of my story, but it doesn't have to be the whole story. I never thought I'd end up feeling like this, like I'm stuck in quicksand, sinking deeper with every move I try to make. It's that constant, gnawing pressure that clings to your chest, the weight of bills and rent and groceries piling up faster than the money I bring in. Some days it feels like no matter what I do, the system just tightens its grip around me tighter, and I'm left gasping, desperate for air that never comes. I'm 27, and if you asked me a few years ago, I'd say I was optimistic, hopeful about building something better, about growing my career, maybe traveling, even thinking about a future where I could breathe easier. But those dreams feel like a luxury now, a distant echo I'm afraid to chase. Right now, every decision I make feels calculated, measured against the harsh realities of a world where expenses grow faster than my paycheck, and the gap just keeps widening. It starts first thing in the morning. I lie in bed, scrolling through my bank app like a daily ritual of dread. There's the rent, almost half my income gone before I've even started my day. Utilities, groceries, transportation, they're the little but relentless leaks draining me dry. I've cut back on almost everything, eating out is a memory, new clothes happen only when something wears out completely, and even social plans get a cautious yes or a soft no, weighed against what I can afford. Friends don't always get it. They invite me out, and I can't help but feel the sting of saying no over and over. I work a job that I care about, one that pays the bills but not much else. I'm grateful for steady work, but it's like running on a treadmill that's speeding up while I'm stuck in slow motion. Promotions and raises are rare, and inflation is a relentless shadow lurking behind every paycheck, eroding what little progress I make. It feels unfair, and sometimes I wrestle with anger at the system, at a world that expects me to keep up with rising costs but offers no real support in return. The stress bleeds into everything. There's a tightness in my chest that won't go away, the kind of anxiety that curls around your thoughts and whispers that you're not enough, that you're failing even when you're trying your hardest. Sleep is restless, my mind won't quiet down as I think through my budget, the unexpected car repair, or the looming deadline for a credit card payment. I keep reminding myself that this isn't forever, but some days it feels like it is. I've had to postpone so much. There was a trip I'd dreamed about for years, a small, budget-friendly escape to recharge and see the world beyond these city streets. I thought I'd travel before settling down, before any big responsibilities. Now, I'm lucky to get a day off without worrying about expenses. Even thinking about saving for a down payment on a place of my own feels like a joke, a dream so far out of reach that it barely registers as real anymore. I try to find moments of light where I can. Sometimes, it's as simple as cooking a new recipe at home, listening to music that lifts my mood, or calling a friend for a chat. I remind myself that joy doesn't have to come with a price tag. But I can't deny the loneliness that creeps in, watching others live with more freedom, more ease, while I keep counting pennies. Every month is a balancing act, and every unexpected expense feels like a crisis. A medical bill here, a car repair there, they're not just financial hits, they're emotional blows that chip away at my resilience. I've learned to ask for help quietly, to stretch what little I have, and to make peace with the fact that I can't control everything. But the truth is, the system is set up to keep people like me in this loop, working harder, stretching thinner, never quite catching up. Yet, beneath the frustration and exhaustion, a small ember of hope remains. I hold on to it tightly, because without it, I'd have nothing. I'm learning to be kinder to myself, to recognize that survival is itself a form of strength. I remind myself that my worth isn't tied to my bank balance or the size of my apartment. I dream of a day when financial pressure loosens its grip, when I can breathe easier and start building those postponed dreams, not just for escape, but for a life that feels fuller, freer. Maybe that day will come sooner than I think. Maybe it won't. But for now, I keep going, one careful step at a time, holding on to the fragile hope that the future can still be something better than the daily struggle I know so well. And sometimes, that's enough. I never thought I'd feel this way, like I'm stuck in a loop that I can't break out of, like no matter how hard I try, I'm just treading water while everything else pulls me under. But here I am, 26 years old, holding down a full-time job and still waking up every morning with this pit in my stomach. It's that constant, nagging worry about money. Not because I'm irresponsible or careless, but because it feels like the system itself is built to keep me, and people like me, on the edge, never quite catching up. I remember when I first moved out on my own. I was so excited, filled with this sense of independence and hope. I had a job that paid okay, a modest apartment, and dreams, big ones. I wanted to travel, save up for a house someday, maybe start a family when the time was right. But life had other plans. At first, I thought I just needed to tighten my belt. So I did. I cut out nights out with friends, I cooked every meal at home, I passed on weekend trips, and I declined invitations because I couldn't afford it. The irony is, even when you do everything right, it still doesn't feel like enough. The cost of rent keeps climbing. It's like a cruel joke, my paycheck stays the same, but the landlord's expectations grow every year. Utilities, groceries, transportation, all creeping upward like a slow-moving avalanche. I try to budget meticulously, tracking every dollar, but somehow I always end up a little short. I've gotten used to the anxiety that hits on payday, waiting to see if the money will cover everything. And most months, it barely does. It's exhausting. There's this constant background stress that wears you down. I lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'm messing this up somehow. Am I just not working hard enough? Should I be trying harder, hustling more? But the truth is, I work 2 jobs, a 9 to 5 in an office and evenings at a cafe on weekends, and I'm still barely scraping by. Sometimes I feel invisible, like the system was designed without me in mind. Bills pile up, emergencies pop up, my car broke down last month, and the repair wiped out my emergency savings, and I'm left scrambling to figure out how to cover it all. There's no safety net, no buffer. Just a constant balancing act, teetering on the edge. Emotionally, it's draining. The financial pressure bleeds into everything, my relationships, my self-esteem, my mental health. I've had to say no to friends' invitations, to family events, because I can't afford the cost of gas or a meal out. That isolation hurts. It makes you question your worth, your place in the world. Sometimes, I feel like I'm shrinking, retreating, just trying to survive day by day. I keep telling myself this is temporary, that someday, things will get better. But the longer this drags on, the harder it is to hold on to hope. Dreams I once had feel farther away every day. The trip to Europe I saved for in college? Postponed indefinitely. The idea of owning a home, something so basic to so many, feels like a distant fantasy. Even starting a family seems like a luxury I can't imagine affording right now. Coping isn't easy. I try to find small moments of peace, a walk in the park, reading a book, listening to music, anything that helps me forget the numbers for a little while. Sometimes I talk to friends about it, though not always. There's a stigma around talking about money struggles, like admitting it means you've failed. But I've realized that vulnerability is the only way to feel less alone in this. I also remind myself that this pressure isn't my fault. It's the reality of the world we live in, where wages stagnate but prices soar, where job security is a joke and the cost of living keeps rising. It's a systemic problem, one that can't be fixed with sheer willpower or discipline alone. Despite it all, I still cling to hope. Not the naive kind, but the kind forged in the fire of struggle. I hope for a day when I can breathe easier, when I don't have to count every penny, when I can make choices based on what I want, not just what I can afford. I hope to break free from this cycle, to build a life where money is a tool, not a chain. For now, I take it one day at a time. I celebrate the small wins, making rent on time, paying off a credit card, finding a little extra to put into savings. Those moments remind me I'm still moving forward, even if the progress feels slow. I'm learning resilience, patience, and the hard truth about what it means to navigate a world that doesn't always play fair. This story isn't unique, I know I'm one of millions feeling this way. And that shared experience, as painful as it is, makes me feel a little less alone. Maybe someday, things will change. Maybe the system will shift to support people like me, rather than trap us. Until then, I'll keep telling my story, because the first step to breaking free is being honest about where you really are. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. I never imagined my 20s would feel like this, a constant tightrope walk where the wind keeps picking up, threatening to knock me off balance. But here I am, caught in this relentless squeeze where every paycheck feels like a mere drop in a vast ocean of bills, rent, groceries, and unexpected expenses. It's as if the system was designed not to help me grow but to keep me pinned down, struggling for air. I want to tell you what it's like living with this ongoing financial pressure, how it shapes every choice I make, every emotion I feel, and every hope I've had to quietly tuck away. I grew up thinking that if I worked hard, stayed disciplined, and made smart decisions, I'd eventually have the kind of life where money wasn't a daily worry. I imagined saving up for a cozy apartment, maybe a trip abroad with friends, and having some breathing room to pursue my passions. But reality had other plans. I work full-time in a retail job that pays the bills, but barely. The economy where I live has become unforgiving, prices on almost everything rise faster than I can keep up. Rent jumped again this year, grocery prices are through the roof, and utilities feel like a monthly surprise that drains what little I can save. Every morning, I wake up calculating. Can I afford the bus fare? Should I skip that coffee and bring water from home? Is it better to eat the leftovers or buy something fresh, even if it means I'll have less money to put towards rent? These aren't trivial decisions, they're survival. I sometimes envy those who talk about budgeting like it's a game, they have enough to play. For me, it's about constant sacrifice and never quite knowing if I'm one emergency away from disaster. The weight of this financial pressure isn't just about money, it's about how it chips away at my sense of self. It's hard to feel like you're making progress when you're stuck in a loop where expenses rise and your income barely moves. I've felt trapped, like I'm running on a treadmill that only speeds up. The system feels rigged, wages stagnant, inflation soaring, and opportunities shrinking. I've applied to other jobs, hoping for something better, but competition is fierce, and my limited experience works against me. It's exhausting to keep pushing when every step forward feels like 2 steps back. Emotionally, it's a roller coaster. Some days I wake up hopeful, maybe this month I can save a bit more, maybe a side hustle will finally take off. Other days, I'm overwhelmed by anxiety. I lie awake at night, heart pounding, thinking about overdue bills or what happens if I lose this job. I've had moments of deep shame, feeling like I should be doing better, that I've somehow failed. But then I remind myself that this isn't a personal failure, it's a systemic problem. Still, that knowledge doesn't make the nights any easier. I cope in small ways. I've started journaling, which helps me release the tension bottled inside. I lean on close friends when I can, though I hesitate to burden them with my struggles. Sometimes, I let myself indulge in small comforts, like a good book or a walk in the park, moments where I can forget about money for just a little while. But mostly, I try to keep my head down and focus on the day-to-day, because looking too far ahead feels like it's asking for disappointment. Dreams? I have them, even if they feel distant now. I once wanted to travel, to see new places, meet new people, to break free from this cycle. I wanted to finish my education, maybe get a degree that could open doors to a career with stability and decent pay. I dreamed about having a home that felt like my own, not just a place to crash before the next rent increase. But these dreams have been postponed, indefinitely. Each month, I tell myself, maybe next year, but the years pass, and the weight of the system keeps those hopes at bay. There's a strange loneliness in all this. Financial struggles isolate you, even when surrounded by people. It's hard to open up about money without feeling judged or pitted. I'm grateful for the few people who understand without making me feel less. I know I'm not alone, millions are in this same bind, but that knowledge doesn't erase the isolation. Sometimes, I wonder what it will take to break free. How many more months, years, will I have to live like this? Will I ever feel secure? It's scary to admit, but part of me worries this is my life now, the constant hustle, the never-ending balancing act. And yet, a stubborn spark remains. I hold on to the hope that one day the system might change or that I might find a way out, no matter how small. Until then, I keep going, day by day, paycheck by paycheck, trying to find moments of peace in the storm. This is my truth, raw, imperfect, and ongoing. It's the story of a young adult caught in an economic squeeze that feels suffocating. But it's also a story of quiet resilience, of grappling with harsh realities while still dreaming, still hoping, still fighting for something better. I never imagined that being an adult would feel like this, like I'm constantly running on a treadmill that's speeding up every time I blink. It's exhausting, frustrating, and sometimes, honestly, heartbreaking. I'm 26, working full-time, and yet it feels like the harder I work, the more invisible my efforts become. The numbers on my paycheck barely keep pace with the rising cost of living, and every month feels like a delicate balancing act that's about to collapse. It starts with the basics. Rent is the biggest weight on my shoulders. I live in a city where prices have shot up so fast it's almost surreal. When I moved here 3 years ago, I thought I had found a decent deal, a small one-bedroom apartment with a view of the city skyline. Now, that rent is creeping higher every year. Utilities, internet, groceries, they all follow suit. I try to be careful, clipping coupons, hunting for sales, cooking at home instead of eating out, but even that feels like a band-aid on a bleeding wound. I look at my bank statement and see the same names draining money: rent, utilities, groceries, transportation, phone bill. Then there's the unexpected, an extra expense here or there that can throw off the whole budget. The job pays just enough to cover these essentials, with a little left over. But that little isn't much. It disappears quickly on things I try to deny myself but can't, like a bus ticket when my bike breaks, or a few dollars for a coffee to get me through a tough morning. Over time, these little expenses add up, and suddenly I'm cutting back on things that should be non-negotiable: social outings, doctor's appointments, even some meals. I've learned to compartmentalize, to push down the anxiety that bubbles up every time I check my bank balance. But inside, it's a constant, nagging feeling of never having enough, no matter how hard I try. What's hardest is the feeling of being trapped. It's like I'm stuck in a system where everything is moving faster than I can keep up with. Wages stay flat or rise just a bit, but rent and bills don't listen, they keep climbing. I'm drowning in a tide of expenses that grow without mercy. And yet, society tells me to keep trying, to keep hustling, to keep believing that things will get better if I just work harder or smarter. But what does that even mean when I'm already working myself thin? This pressure has seeped into every part of my life. It's not just about money, it's about the dreams and plans I've had to shelve. I once wanted to travel, see the world beyond these city limits, experience different cultures, find inspiration. But every time I look at the price of a plane ticket or the cost of even a weekend getaway, I sigh and close the tab. Buying a car, which could make my commute easier and save some money on transportation in the long run, feels like an impossible goal. I've put off going back to school to improve my skills because the tuition costs and lost income feel insurmountable. Even something as simple as a night out with friends has become a luxury. Emotionally, it's exhausting. Some days, I feel like I'm carrying a weight no one else can see. It's isolating, this constant worry that something unexpected, an emergency, a car repair, a medical bill, could tip everything into crisis. I try to talk about it with friends, but there's this underlying shame in admitting how tight things really are. People say things like, just budget better, or save more, but when your income barely covers necessities, saving feels like a joke. Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing something wrong, if I'm not working hard enough, even though I'm exhausted from 50-hour work weeks. To cope, I've started small routines that help me feel some control. I meal prep on Sundays to avoid eating out. I track every dollar, obsessively, even if it's painful. I use mindfulness apps to calm the anxiety when the stress gets too high. And I lean on a few close friends who understand or at least don't judge. Sometimes I escape into books or movies, temporary reprieves where I can live in someone else's story and forget my own for a little while. But beneath it all, I cling to hope, fragile though it may be. I remind myself that this isn't forever, that things can change, even if it's slow. I dream of a day when I'm not counting pennies, when I can afford to take care of myself properly, to invest in my future, to give back to those I care about. I want to build a life where financial pressure doesn't define my every move, where I can breathe without anxiety tightening my chest. I want to feel free. It's a quiet kind of hope, the kind that flickers in the dark and refuses to go out. Maybe one day I'll look back and see this time as the struggle that shaped me, that made me stronger and more determined. For now, I take it one day at a time, one paycheck at a time, trying to find small moments of peace in a world that often feels like it's set up to keep me barely afloat. Being young and financially pressured isn't just about numbers, it's about the constant tension between survival and aspiration, between despair and hope. It's a heavy, invisible burden that many of us carry silently, hoping to one day break free. Until then, I keep going. Every morning, I wake up with this heavy weight pressing down on my chest, like the day's already decided I'm losing before I've even had coffee. It's a slow burn that's been building for years, but lately, it started to feel like I'm stuck in quicksand. The harder I struggle, the deeper I sink. I'm 27, technically a young adult, but sometimes I wonder if I'm just an adult in name only, because the pressures bearing down on me don't seem to fit into any neat timeline. When I was a kid, I imagined the future as this bright, open road. I had dreams, some vague, some sharp like needles. I wanted to travel, to maybe start a small creative business, and most of all, I wanted to feel secure enough to stop worrying about money every second of the day. But now, years into working full-time, juggling side gigs, and trying to hold on to some semblance of a social life, those dreams feel like distant stars. Beautiful, yes, but unreachable. The economic environment feels like a storm cloud I can't outrun. Rent keeps climbing, like a relentless tide swallowing more of my paycheck each month. Groceries cost more than they used to, and even when I try to eat simple, healthy meals, the price tag stacks up. Utilities, internet, phone bills, everything seems to go up, while my income barely budges. I work 2 jobs right now. One is a full-time office gig that pays just enough to cover basics, the other a part-time weekend hustle. Still, it's never enough. There's always another bill, another unexpected expense, another price hike. Sometimes I calculate in my head, trying to budget down to the last dollar, but it's like trying to catch smoke with bare hands. I feel trapped in this system that wasn't designed with people like me in mind. The cost of living grows faster than my paycheck, and there's no end in sight. I watch the news, hear stories about inflation, about the housing market, about corporate greed, and it all feels like a storm I'm weathering with no shelter. I'm exhausted, physically, mentally, emotionally. The pressure to keep up is constant, and the fear of falling behind is almost paralyzing. On a practical level, this means I make choices every day that feel like small sacrifices, no, more like continuous concessions. I skip meals sometimes just so I can pay rent on time. I say no to nights out with friends, to family gatherings, because the price of transportation or a meal out feels too steep. Even buying a new pair of shoes or replacing a broken phone screen is a luxury. I buy second-hand clothes and scour discount apps, but there's a quiet humiliation in it all. Not because I'm ashamed of my circumstances, but because I know how much better life could be if I had even a little breathing room. There's also this gnawing anxiety about the future. Saving for emergencies? Impossible. Building credit? A constant struggle when you're using every dollar just to get by. Retirement feels like a joke. How can I think about something that's decades away when I'm barely making it through the next week? I try to remind myself that this is temporary, but the timeline keeps stretching. The dream of owning a place of my own, of building a life that feels safe and stable, keeps getting pushed back further and further. Emotionally, it's a roller coaster. Some days I'm filled with frustration, sometimes it bubbles up into anger. Why is the system so stacked against people like me? Why does it feel like no matter how hard I work, I'm treading water? Other days I'm crushed by sadness, a quiet, overwhelming feeling of being unseen and unheard, of trying to keep going while the world rushes by with ease. I sometimes feel embarrassed talking about it. There's a stigma around money struggles, especially for someone my age. The pressure to appear like I have it all together, to keep up appearances on social media, or even just in casual conversations, makes me bottle things up until they burn inside. Coping is a mix of practical strategies and mental gymnastics. I'm trying to learn to budget better, though it feels like an endless, thankless task. I cling to small pleasures that don't cost money, a walk in the park, an old book borrowed from the library, calling a friend late at night when the silence feels too heavy. I write sometimes, because it's the one place where I can be honest without judgment, where I can name the feelings that don't have space in everyday life. Meditation apps help me calm the noise, even if just for a few minutes. But there's also a stubborn thread of hope. Even though I feel stuck now, I believe in the possibility of change. I hold on to the idea that someday, maybe not soon, I'll have the freedom to say yes to more things, to travel, to invest in my passions, to stop counting pennies for everything. I imagine a life where I'm not just surviving but thriving, where I can look back on these hard years and say, "You made me stronger." I've had to postpone dreams, yes. The dream of buying a house, the dream of quitting the job that drains me, the dream of going back to school without the crushing burden of loans and bills. But those dreams aren't gone. They're just waiting, like seeds beneath the soil. And maybe one day, with enough resilience and luck, they'll grow. Until then, I keep going. I remind myself that struggling with money doesn't define my worth. That beneath all this pressure is still a person who deserves kindness, stability, and the chance to build a life that feels good. It's not easy, and it often feels unfair. But I'm here, still fighting, still hoping, still dreaming, even if those dreams have to wait a little longer. Because sometimes surviving is its own kind of victory. Sometimes, it feels like I'm living in a glass box, one that keeps shrinking, no matter how hard I press my hands against the walls. The world outside seems so big and full of possibilities, but in here, all I see are bills, rent notices, and the endless climb of prices. It's like the air inside is thick with worry, making it hard to breathe, to think beyond the next paycheck. I'm 27 now. I graduated with hopes that I could build something stable, maybe even comfortable someday. But comfort feels like a distant dream I'm always just out of reach from. Every month, my income feels smaller when I compare it to the rising tide of expenses. Rent hikes, groceries getting more expensive, utilities that keep creeping up. It's like my paycheck is a bucket with holes. No matter how fast I pour in money, it leaks away before I can fill it. I remember the first time I realized I was trapped in this system. It was around my second year after college. I was getting a raise at work, which felt like a victory. But when I sat down to budget, the rent had increased by more than my raise, and utilities and groceries had also gone up. I was effectively making less money than before. That's when the panic started settling in. The pressure is constant. It's in every choice I make. Should I buy a full grocery cart or just enough to get through a couple of days? Do I pay off my credit card bill this month, or do I hold back to cover my electricity bill? The mental math never ends, and there's always the fear of one unexpected expense knocking everything out of balance. Social life? That's a luxury I can rarely afford. When friends invite me out, I smile and say I can't make it, not because I don't want to see them, but because a $20 night out means a week of scrimping on food or skipping my morning coffee. It's lonely sometimes, but the alternative feels worse, falling into debt or running out of money before my next paycheck. I try to cope by focusing on small victories. Maybe I packed lunch instead of eating out, or found a cheaper bus route. But these wins feel hollow when I look at the bigger picture. Every month, I'm just one emergency away from a crisis. One unexpected car repair, one medical bill, or a broken appliance could send me spiraling. It's not just about money, it's about the emotional toll. The stress gnaws at me, making me anxious and exhausted. Some nights, I lie awake thinking about all the things I'm supposed to have figured out by now: a stable career, savings, a plan for the future. But the truth is, I'm just trying to survive day to day. The weight of this financial strain makes me feel small and powerless, like I'm running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up while I get more tired. I've had to postpone dreams I once held close. Buying a home? That feels impossible. Starting a family? I'm not even sure I could handle the financial responsibility right now. Traveling, further education, even hobbies that cost money, they're all on hold indefinitely. It's heartbreaking to realize that the life I imagined is slipping further away with each passing month. Sometimes I wonder if I'm alone in this feeling. Maybe I'm not managing my money well enough. Maybe I just need to work harder or smarter. But when I talk to friends or scroll through social media, I see many people grappling with the same pressures. It's like we're all stuck in this system that's designed to keep us running without getting anywhere. Despite it all, I hold on to hope, fragile but real. I believe that change is possible, even if it feels slow. Maybe someday I'll have enough savings to breathe easy, to say yes to that dinner with friends, to take that trip I've always dreamed about. For now, I keep going, trying to find moments of peace in the chaos. Being honest about this struggle feels scary. There's shame in not having it all together, in admitting how hard it is just to get by. But I'm learning that vulnerability is a strength. By sharing my story, I hope to remind others that they're not alone, and maybe, together, we can find ways to break free from this cycle. This glass box I'm in might be shrinking, but I'm still here, still pushing against those walls, still dreaming of a life where money isn't the constant shadow lurking behind every decision. And maybe, just maybe, someday the box will shatter, and I'll finally step out into the space I've been longing for. I never thought I'd find myself stuck in this endless loop, where every month feels like a battle I'm destined to lose. Growing up, I imagined by the time I was in my mid-20s, I'd have at least a bit of financial breathing room. Maybe a little savings account, a steady paycheck that could cover rent and groceries without making me feel like I'm walking on a tightrope. But the reality? It's been the opposite. The weight of ongoing financial pressure has become a quiet, constant companion I can't shake. I work full-time, sometimes 2 jobs, and yet, somehow, my expenses stretch just beyond my income every single month. Rent goes up, utility bills climb, groceries seem to cost more each week. And the pay? It's barely budged, if it has at all. I keep hearing about inflation and interest rates on the news, but it only really hits home when I'm staring at my bank app, wondering how I'm going to make it until the next paycheck. It's like running on a treadmill that speeds up every time I think I've caught my breath. I remember a day last year when my car broke down, right in the middle of a shift. I had to take a taxi home because I couldn't afford to fix it right away. The driver asked if everything was okay, and all I could manage was a weak smile. Inside, I was sinking under the pressure. That car wasn't just transportation, it was my lifeline to work, to appointments, to just getting by. Losing it, even temporarily, felt like losing a bit of myself. I had to borrow money from a friend, and I hate how that makes me feel, like I'm always one step away from falling apart. Every decision feels amplified by money. Do I buy groceries now or wait until next week? Can I skip my prescription refill just this once? Should I cut back on my phone plan even though I need it for job searching? It's exhausting. I constantly weigh needs against needs, and sometimes, basic self-care falls by the wayside because it just doesn't fit into the budget. I've canceled plans with friends more times than I can count, not because I don't want to see them, but because even a small cost feels like a luxury. Emotionally, it's draining. The stress doesn't just come and go, it lingers, like a shadow over everything I do. There are nights I lie awake, heart pounding, replaying every bill I haven't paid or every what-if scenario that might push me over the edge. The hopelessness creeps in when I think about the future, if there even is one that looks different. It's hard to stay motivated when it feels like the system is rigged, like I'm caught in a trap where expenses rise faster than I can earn, and the goalposts keep moving farther away. Sometimes, I wonder what it's like for people who don't have to worry about this. To feel stable, secure, hopeful. I'm jealous, and I'm tired. I'm angry at how the world seems to favor those already ahead while people like me just try to keep our heads above water. I've had dreams I've tucked away because they seem impossible now. Going back to school to finish my degree, saving enough to move into a place of my own, even something as simple as taking a vacation to recharge. All of those feel like distant stars, beautiful but unreachable. But I try to cope in little ways. I find small victories in sticking to a budget, even when it feels tight. I remind myself that this moment, painful as it is, isn't the end of my story. I write down the things I'm grateful for, even if it's just a warm cup of coffee or a supportive friend who listens without judgment. I hold on to the hope that maybe one day, with persistence and a bit of luck, I can break free from this cycle. I'm learning to be kinder to myself, even when the system isn't. Because I am more than the numbers in my bank account or the weight of my bills. I am still dreaming, quietly, fiercely, for a future where money isn't the thing that defines my worth or limits my possibilities. For now, I'll keep pushing, surviving, hoping. Because that's all any of us can do when life feels like it's pressing down too hard. And maybe, just maybe, someday those postponed dreams will catch up to me. It's like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up, but no matter how fast I move, I'm stuck in the same place. Every month, the bills pile up a little higher, the price of groceries inches a little further out of reach, and my paycheck somehow feels lighter than the last. I never thought I'd feel this way in my mid-20s, exhausted, anxious, and caught in a constant battle to keep my head above water financially. But here I am. I remember when I first started working full-time, fresh out of college, I had this idealistic hope that I'd be able to save, maybe even splurge a little here and there. I thought, I just have to be responsible with my money, budget well, and everything will fall into place. But reality hit hard and fast. Rent jumped again last year, and even though I've tried moving to a cheaper place, everything affordable is either miles away from work or in a sketchy neighborhood. So, I stay where I am because the trade-offs just don't feel worth it. Food prices are another silent thief. I used to cook meals I loved, experiment with recipes, enjoy weekends with friends over dinners. Now, I stick to the basics: rice, beans, frozen vegetables, and I skip things like coffee runs or nights out without even thinking twice. When the cashier rings up the groceries and the total is more than I expected, it feels like a punch in the gut. I put back that one extra thing I was really craving because I can't justify it. It's a little thing, but those small moments add up, wearing me down emotionally. Transportation is no easier. My car's getting older, and repairs are a constant worry. Public transit is cheaper but unreliable and sometimes unsafe, especially late at night. I can't afford a better car, but I can't afford not to have one either. It's a trap that leaves me feeling trapped, like I'm always one unexpected expense away from a crisis. Every time I think about asking for a raise, the fear creeps in: will they say no? Will it make me look ungrateful or desperate? Plus, even if I did get a raise, inflation's so high, it would barely make a dent in my budget. The emotional toll is heavier than I expected. I lie awake at night worrying about money: how to pay for a doctor's appointment if I get sick, how to afford winter clothes without falling behind on rent, how to save something, anything, for emergencies. The stress sometimes feels suffocating, and it's hard to admit that to anyone. Friends don't always get it because they might be in different financial situations, and family, though supportive, sometimes just say you have to be careful without really understanding how hard that is when every dollar feels like it has to stretch across miles. I've had to postpone so many dreams. Traveling, for one. I always imagined visiting new places, seeing the world, breaking out of this routine that sometimes feels suffocating. But when flights cost more than a month's groceries, those dreams get shelved indefinitely. Even simple things, like going to a concert or signing up for a class I'm passionate about, get pushed aside because the budget is tight. It's like I'm living someone else's life, just existing, rather than truly living. Sometimes, I cope by distracting myself. I binge-watch shows, scroll endlessly through social media, and lose myself in daydreams about a better future. I journal too, trying to keep track of my expenses and remind myself of my goals. I've started looking into side gigs, anything that can bring in a few extra dollars. It's exhausting juggling work, bills, and then trying to find time for that. I'm tired, more than I ever thought possible. But despite everything, I still hold on to hope. I tell myself that this is temporary, that things will get better, that I'll find a way out. I dream of a time when I can breathe freely without calculating every cent, when I can treat myself without guilt, when I can invest in my future instead of just trying to survive today. Sometimes, that hope feels like the only thing keeping me sane. It's just hard to shake the feeling that the system is designed to keep people like me in this cycle, where costs rise relentlessly but incomes lag behind, where opportunities are limited, and financial security feels like a distant fantasy. I want to believe that hard work pays off, but right now, it feels like I'm just spinning my wheels, hoping that someday, somehow, the treadmill will slow down. Until then, I keep moving, one careful step at a time, trying not to lose myself in the struggle. I never thought I'd be writing this story, not because my life is extraordinary, but because it feels like I'm living the same day over and over, each one marked by the creeping pressure of money slipping through my fingers. I'm 27, living in a small apartment that I can barely afford, working a job that pays just enough to keep me afloat but never quite enough to feel safe or hopeful. I want to share what it's like to be caught in this relentless grind, to live under the weight of bills and rising costs that outpace my paycheck like an endless race I'm doomed to lose. It's strange, because I grew up thinking if I worked hard, I'd be fine. My parents never had much, but they always said education and effort would open doors. I studied, got a decent degree, and landed a job with a steady income. But steady doesn't mean enough. The rent alone swallows nearly half of what I earn, and with every year, that rent creeps up, just like everything else: the groceries, the utilities, the gas for my car. Inflation isn't just a number I hear on the news, it's the reason I cut back on food, on social outings, on things that used to bring me joy. Most mornings, I wake up with this knot in my stomach, the kind that tells me I'm already behind before the day has even started. I check my bank account, calculating how many days until my next paycheck, how much I can afford to spend, And how much I need to put aside for emergencies I know I'll never have the luxury of. Sometimes I think about calling my parents for help, but I can't, they're barely managing themselves. I feel this overwhelming mix of pride and helplessness, trying to carry my own weight while feeling like I'm sinking. One of the hardest things is how this pressure shapes every single decision. Do I fix my old laptop now, or wait a few more weeks and risk it breaking completely? Should I buy groceries in bulk or stick to smaller amounts to avoid a big upfront cost? Can I afford the bus fare this week, or do I have to walk extra miles to save that few dollars? These choices aren't just practical, they're exhausting. I didn't realize how draining it is to live like this until I noticed how little energy I have left for anything else, relationships, hobbies, or even just rest. I used to dream about traveling, about saving enough to move somewhere bigger or brighter, maybe even starting my own business one day. I imagined weekends filled with laughter, evenings spent learning something new, and a future where I felt in control of my time and money. But those dreams have been pushed farther and farther out of reach. Now, I keep them locked away like fragile treasures, afraid to unpack them because the weight of my reality feels too heavy. There's this constant fear, too, the fear that no matter how hard I work, I'll never get ahead. That the system is designed for people like me to just survive, not thrive. Watching prices rise while wages stay stagnant feels like a slow suffocation. The bills don't wait for pay raises, and the debt piles up silently. I've learned the language of minimum payments, late fees, and balancing acts on credit cards. It's a language I never wanted to know but one I speak fluently. Emotionally, it's a roller coaster. There are days when I feel proud of myself for making it through another month, for finding small ways to save or stretch what I have. But there are also nights when I cry quietly because I'm scared that this is all there is, scared that the years will pass without me ever breaking free. The loneliness sometimes hits hard, like I'm the only one trapped in this endless loop. Yet, I know I'm not alone. I see it in friends who cancel plans to save money, in family members who take second jobs, in communities struggling with the same invisible chains. To cope, I've had to learn to be both creative and ruthless. I cook at home instead of eating out, I barter skills with friends, I cut cable and switch to the cheapest phone plan. I've started small side gigs, freelance work, odd jobs, anything to bring in a few extra dollars. But even these feel like drops in an ocean. I remind myself that these sacrifices are temporary, that someday I'll breathe easier. But the timeline is fuzzy, and sometimes that hope feels like a fragile thread. Despite everything, I hold on to my core belief that this isn't my fault. The economic environment is harsh and unforgiving, and it wears down the best intentions. I refuse to let it define me or my worth. Every day, I try to remind myself that my value isn't tied to my bank balance, even if society makes it feel that way. I want to believe that there's a way out, a way to reclaim the dreams I've shelved, to build a life where money doesn't dictate my happiness or peace of mind. This story isn't just about struggle, it's about resilience. About the small victories, the moments I find joy despite it all, the friends who understand without judgment, the nights I choose hope over despair. I'm still here, still trying, still dreaming, even if those dreams look different now. Maybe someday, when the pressure eases and the system shifts, I'll tell this story again, this time about how I got through it, how I made it to the other side. But for now, this is my truth, living in a world where expenses grow faster than income is a daily battle. It shapes every choice, colors every emotion, and tests every ounce of hope I have left. And while it can feel like being trapped, I'm holding on tight to the belief that I'm more than this struggle, that a better future is possible, even if it's still just out of reach. I wake up every morning to the same tight knot in my chest, the weight of bills and worries pressing down before I even open my eyes. It's a quiet kind of pressure, one that creeps in slowly but never really leaves. At 27, I'm supposed to be building a life, maybe traveling, saving for a home, investing in myself, but instead, I'm stuck running on a treadmill that's speeding up while my legs barely keep pace. I work a full-time job, one that I don't hate but don't love either. It pays the rent and the utilities, mostly, but that's about it. Every paycheck disappears faster than I expect, swallowed whole by rising rents, groceries that cost more than last month, and the endless barrage of unexpected expenses, car repairs, medical bills, subscriptions I try to cut but end up keeping just in case. It's like being trapped in a system designed to squeeze every last cent out of you, while your income barely inches forward, if at all. Some days, I try to calculate where all the money goes, but it feels hopeless. My rent alone consumes more than half my paycheck, and the rest has to stretch across food, transportation, insurance, and the occasional text to a friend to say, "Hey, I can't really do that this week." That phrase stings, especially when I want to say yes. I want to be spontaneous, to share moments without worrying about the cost, but the math never adds up. I remember a time when I thought a small apartment downtown would be an exciting step, a place to call my own, close to work, and a little slice of freedom. But those dreams quickly dissolved as rent climbed every year, faster than my salary. Moving farther out seemed like the only option, but then transportation costs rise, and suddenly I'm paying for more than just a place to sleep. I'm paying for the time lost commuting, the exhaustion that follows, and the dwindling chance of saving anything. The strangest part is how normal this pressure has become. I rarely talk about it because no one wants to hear about the endless cycle of financial stress. I feel embarrassed, like I'm failing at adulthood. But how can I not? Expenses rise like tides, and my paycheck is a tiny boat trying not to capsize. The emotional toll is heavier than I ever expected. There are nights I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, imagining a future where I'm not constantly worried about money. I imagine a quiet home filled with books and plants, maybe a pet to keep me company. I dream of taking a weekend trip somewhere new or even just dining out without checking the price first. But those moments feel like distant stars, beautiful, unreachable. I cope in small ways. Sometimes, I binge-watch old shows because they're free and offer an escape. Other times, I dive into writing or painting, trying to capture feelings that words alone can't express. Budgeting apps have become my best friend and worst enemy, a reminder of how tight things are but also a tool to control the chaos. I count every dollar, clipping coupons, and hunting for sales like it's a sport. Yet, even with all this effort, there's this gnawing feeling of being stuck. I've had to postpone so many dreams. College debts linger, and the thought of going back to school for something I love feels absurdly expensive. Starting a family? That's a conversation I push to the back of my mind because the financial foundation just isn't there. Even small joys, like hobbies, gym memberships, or new clothes, get sacrificed on the altar of survival. Sometimes, I wonder if this is just my reality or if everyone feels it too but hides it better. I see friends buying homes or changing jobs with pay raises, and I celebrate their success but also feel a sting of envy and frustration. Why can't I catch a break? Why does the system seem to favor some while squeezing others? The world around me talks about economic recovery and growth, but I feel like those words belong to a different universe. Inflation is a term I know too well, and interest rates mean my credit card debt grows despite my best efforts. I'm constantly juggling, trying to avoid late fees, hoping for a little extra at work, and praying nothing unexpected happens. But despite all this, I hold on to hope. I remind myself that this isn't forever. I try to believe that one day, the pieces will fall into place. Maybe I'll find a job that pays more, or the housing market will soften. Maybe I'll discover a way to break free from this relentless cycle. Sometimes, that hope feels fragile, like a candle flickering in the wind, but it's enough to keep me going. I also realize the importance of connection. Even when money is tight, spending time with friends, sharing a meal, or just talking about struggles can lift some of the weight. Vulnerability is hard, but it's also freeing. I want to be honest about how hard it is because maybe, just maybe, others feel the same and we can find strength together. So, each day I wake up, take a deep breath, and try again. I make the small choices that keep me afloat, turning off lights early, skipping that extra coffee, working a little overtime. I hold tight to the dreams I've had to postpone, nurturing them quietly until I'm ready to chase them again. Being young and financially strapped is like living in a constant balancing act, where every step matters and the ground feels unstable. But I'm still here, still trying, still hoping that someday, the weight will lift and I'll finally catch my breath. Until then, this is my story, an honest reflection of what it means to live in a world where expenses climb faster than income, where dreams are delayed but never fully abandoned. And maybe that's enough for now. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.